Shots fired, a fight taken to the streets, and this chaotic scene, the ending of a shooting that started in Los Angeles, California. Sheriff's deputies pulling out a man who had been shot in an SUV. Savannah rapper Quando Rondo, a passenger in that car, frantic at the sight.
They said there was $1 million on Quando Rondo's head. $1 million. Not internet talk, not street rumors, federal paperwork, court documents, receipts. And what's wild is, the feds say it wasn't just talk, it was a real offer, moving through real people, with real money behind it. Flights booked, cars rented, messages sent, all of it tracked. And while the streets whispered about a bounty, prosecutors claimed they were quietly watching everything stack up behind the scenes. This all traces back to one night that changed hip-hop forever. November 6, 2020, outside the Monaco Hookah Lounge in Atlanta. King Von lost his life, and from that moment on, nothing was the same. Allegedly, grief turned into Get Back, and Get Back turned into a federal case that now threatens to end Lil Durk's career and freedom permanently. Fast forward to Los Angeles. Shots fired at a gas station. Quando Rondo walks away untouched, but his cousin Lil Pab doesn't make it home. And now, years later, prosecutors are claiming that hit was tied to a $1 million promise, paid whether the target lived or died. This isn't just rap beef anymore. This is the streets, the industry, and the feds colliding, and what we're about to break down is one of the most shocking cases hip-hop has ever seen. To really understand how this alleged $1 million bounty even became possible, you have to go back before the court documents, before the informants, before the federal indictments. You have to go back to the bond between Lil Durk and King Von, because without that relationship, none of this makes sense. Von wasn't just another artist on Durk's label. He wasn't just business. That was family. Same blocks, same trenches, same survival stories. Durk didn't just sign Von. He believed in him, protected him, and helped turn him into one of the most feared and respected voices in drill music. King Von's rise was fast, but his reputation came with weight. He rapped what he lived, and people believed him because his past backed it up. Years before fame, Von had already beaten serious charges, spending over 3 years locked up before walking free. When he came home, Durk stood by him. And when Von blew up, he carried OTF and O-Block on his back everywhere he went. Their loyalty to each other was public, unapologetic, and unquestioned. On the other side was Quando Rondo, a rising artist from Savannah with close ties to NBA YoungBoy. At the time, tensions between camps were already simmering. Diss tracks, sneak disses, social media jabs. It was all part of the environment. But nothing suggested things were about to turn deadly in Atlanta that night. November 6, 2020 started like any other industry night. King Von had been out celebrating, hitting clubs, enjoying the success he worked years for. Quando Rondo and his crew were at the Monaco Hookah Lounge, minding their own business, including his close friend Timothy, Lil Tim Leaks. According to surveillance footage and witness accounts, someone tipped Von off that Rondo was there. That information changed everything. Von pulled up to the lounge and confronted Quando Rondo in the parking lot. What happened next unfolded in seconds but echoed for years. Video shows Von approaching Rondo and throwing the first punch while Rondo was seated. What could have stayed a one-on-one fight instantly escalated. People rushed in. Tension exploded. Guns were drawn. And in the chaos, Lil Tim fired shots in defense of Quando Rondo. King Von was hit multiple times. 6 people were shot overall. 3 lives were lost. Von was rushed to the hospital but didn't survive. The rap world froze. Fans, artists, and the streets all reacted at once. And while emotions ran high, the legal system moved quickly. Timothy Leaks was arrested and charged with felony murder. Quando Rondo was questioned but never charged. Over time, prosecutors determined the shooting met Georgia's self-defense standard. In March 2023, all charges against Lil Tim were dropped. From a legal standpoint, the case was closed. But legally justified doesn't mean accepted in the streets. According to federal prosecutors, Lil Durk never viewed the situation as settled. In their version of events, Von's death wasn't something that could be left alone, regardless of what the courts ruled. They allege that by 2022, Durk had authorized a $1 million bounty on Quando Rondo as retaliation. This allegation didn't surface on social media first. It didn't come from bloggers. It appeared in federal court filings, specifically a supplemental memorandum filed in January 2026. That's what shook everything up. For the first time, prosecutors put a dollar amount on the alleged hit, claiming it wasn't symbolic, it was operational. The government alleges intermediaries were used to spread the word, not direct conversations, not obvious messages, but trusted members passing information quietly. According to court records, DeAndre Muop Wilson is named as a key figure who allegedly helped recruit shooters and communicate the bounty. The message was simple: handle the job and you'd be taken care of for life. The alleged plan didn't stay theoretical. On August 19, 2022, Quando Rondo was riding in a black Cadillac Escalade in Los Angeles. At a gas station near the Beverly Center, a white sedan pulled up. 3 shooters jumped out and opened fire, unloading more than a dozen rounds. Prosecutors say this was a premeditated ambush. Quando Rondo survived without a scratch. His cousin, Saviaya Lulpab Robinson, was struck and later died from his injuries. That single outcome changed the entire case. The intended target lived, but someone else lost their life. Under federal law, prosecutors argue that doesn't lessen responsibility, it escalates it. Investigators claim the evidence trail is overwhelming. iCloud messages allegedly recovered from Durk's devices, warning associates about booking flights under names connected to him. Bank records showing payments for airfare, rental cars, and hotel stays. Location data placing individuals where prosecutors say they needed to be. In their view, this wasn't random, it was coordinated. And then comes the part that makes this case especially dangerous. Prosecutors allege that after the failed hit, rewards were still distributed. Not necessarily cash in envelopes, but things of value: jewelry, custom grills, paid appearances, features in music videos, industry opportunities. According to the government, these benefits fulfilled the promise of the bounty, even though Quando Rondo survived. They argue that under federal murder-for-hire statutes, payment doesn't require success, only intent and compensation. The scope doesn't stop with Rondo either. Informants have told investigators that multiple bounties were allegedly active at the same time on other rivals. Names appear in filings under aliases, suggesting a broader pattern rather than a single act of revenge. By October 2024, federal agents moved in. Lil Durk was arrested in Florida, along with multiple alleged associates. Charges included conspiracy to commit murder for hire, use of interstate facilities in a murder plot, and firearm offenses resulting in death. Prosecutors immediately opposed bail, claiming Durk was a flight risk. They pointed to booked international travel, Dubai, Switzerland, Italy, arguing he was preparing to leave the country. Bail was denied. Durk was transferred to federal custody in Los Angeles, where he remains. Durk's legal team has denied everything. They argue the case is built on unreliable informants trying to save themselves. They've challenged the use of rap lyrics as evidence and pushed back hard on the narrative that OTF functioned as a criminal organization. Meanwhile, Quando Rondo is fighting his own legal battles, currently serving federal time on unrelated charges. The irony is heavy. Both men locked up, years after a moment neither of them could undo. At the center of it all are 2 lives lost, King Von and Lil Pab, 2 families shattered, and a chain reaction that prosecutors say spiraled into one of the biggest murder-for-hire cases hip-hop has ever seen. And this is only the beginning of what the feds are alleging. Once the feds locked in on the alleged Los Angeles hit, the case stopped being about one night and turned into a long-term conspiracy investigation. Prosecutors weren't just trying to prove that an ambush happened. They were trying to show intent, planning, communication, and reward. In federal cases like this, the story isn't told through one piece of evidence, it's built brick by brick. And according to court filings, those bricks came from inside the circle. The most damaging element in the government's case didn't come from cameras or wiretaps. It came from people who were once considered loyal. Multiple cooperating witnesses stepped forward, some facing double-digit sentences of their own. Prosecutors say at least one individual began cooperating to avoid more than a decade behind bars. And once that door opened, information started flowing. These witnesses allegedly described how the bounty was discussed indirectly, never spelled out in obvious terms. No one allegedly said $1 million to kill Quando Rondo out loud. Instead, phrases like getting made right and being taken care of were used. According to the government, everyone involved understood what that meant. In street culture, that language doesn't need clarification. Investigators claim these conversations lined up with real-world actions. Flights from Chicago to Los Angeles booked around the same time. Rental vehicles secured shortly after. Hotel rooms paid for using cards tied back to individuals prosecutors say were connected to Durk's circle. Even burner phones allegedly popped up in patterns that matched the timeline of the shooting. One message prosecutors highlighted warned associates not to book flights under names connected to Durk. To the defense, it's meaningless. To the government, it shows consciousness of guilt, an awareness that law enforcement attention was a possibility. Then there's the aftermath. Federal prosecutors argue that the failed hit didn't end the obligation. They say participants were still rewarded. Jewelry appeared. Custom grills surfaced. Music video appearances followed. Shout-outs and songs dropped after the shooting. To fans, these looked like normal industry moves. To the government, they're framed as compensation. That's a key point. Under federal murder-for-hire law, the crime doesn't hinge on whether the target dies. It hinges on whether something of value was promised or delivered in exchange for violence. Prosecutors say that's exactly what happened. As this evidence stacked up, the scope of the investigation widened. Informants allegedly told agents that Quando Rondo wasn't the only name discussed. Other rivals were allegedly mentioned. Multiple bounties, multiple targets. The government's narrative shifted from retaliation to enterprise. That's when the music itself entered the courtroom. Prosecutors initially attempted to use rap lyrics and videos to support their claims, arguing they demonstrated hierarchy, coded language, and reward systems. Durk's defense team immediately pushed back, calling it biased and dangerous. They argued that violent lyrics are part of the genre and shouldn't be treated as confessions. This argument wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Expert testimony was introduced on how rap is policed differently than other forms of art. The defense highlighted how lyrics in rock or country rarely face the same scrutiny, even when they describe violence. That pressure worked, at least partially. Some references to lyrics were removed from revised indictments, but prosecutors didn't back down completely. They still argue that certain lyrics line up too closely with real-world events to ignore. Meanwhile, the pressure on Durk intensified. In October 2024, U.S. Marshals arrested him in Florida, along with several alleged associates. The charges were severe: conspiracy to commit murder for hire, use of interstate facilities to commit murder, firearm offenses resulting in death. Prosecutors made it clear from the start they would oppose bail. They argued Durk had both the means and motive to flee. Court filings referenced international travel plans, claiming flights to Dubai, Switzerland, and Italy had already been booked. The defense denied it was an escape attempt, but the judge wasn't convinced. Bail was denied. Durk was transferred to federal custody in Los Angeles and placed in MDC. At one point, he was moved to solitary confinement after allegedly being found with an unauthorized Apple Watch in his cell. That raised serious concerns about his mental health and detention conditions. His legal team described it as excessive and punitive. As Durk sat behind bars, the ripple effects spread outward. Civil lawsuits began stacking up. Lil Pab's mother filed a wrongful death suit, alleging that Durk's actions led to her son's death. Separately, the estate of FBG Duck filed a lawsuit accusing Durk and others of profiting from violence through music and branding. While civil cases don't determine guilt in criminal court, they added public pressure and kept the spotlight burning. At the same time, Quando Rondo was dealing with his own reality. In December 2024, he was sentenced to 33 months in federal prison on a marijuana conspiracy charge. His projected release date sits around 2027. The irony isn't lost. Two men at the center of one of hip-hop's darkest chapters, both behind bars, years after the initial spark. Public opinion split sharply. Some fans believe the case proves how far street beef can spiral when money and fame collide. Others believe Durk is being targeted, built up, and torn down by informants looking to save themselves. The debate only intensified as more details leaked. And then came the timeline. Prosecutors connected the alleged bounty to 2022, arguing it was placed nearly 2 years after King Von's death. That gap raised questions. Why wait? The government's answer is preparation. According to them, the plan required coordination, trust, and the right moment. The defense sees it differently. They argue the timeline makes no sense, that it relies on witnesses who change their stories, and that no direct evidence links Durk to a verbal or written bounty agreement. No recorded call, no signed deal, just testimony. That's where the case gets dangerous for both sides. Federal juries are instructed to consider credibility. If they believe the informants, the case becomes devastating. If they don't, reasonable doubt enters the room. Everything hinges on which version of loyalty the jury believes, the loyalty of the streets or the loyalty to truth under oath. As the trial date approaches, the tension keeps building. April 2026 is set, but delays remain possible. Thousands of pages of discovery, hours of footage, financial records, and witness statements are still being fought over. And looming over everything is the same question that refuses to go away. Was this grief that turned into retaliation, or is this a narrative built on desperation and self-preservation? As the case moves closer to trial, the spotlight shifts to the people whose words could ultimately decide Lil Durk's fate. Not the rappers, not the fans, not the blogs, the witnesses. According to prosecutors, the most damaging information didn't come from surveillance cameras or financial records alone. It came from inside the house. People who once shared rooms, rides, meals, and money with Durk. People who were supposed to ride no matter what. Federal filings describe multiple cooperating witnesses who agreed to testify in exchange for reduced sentences. These aren't outsiders guessing from the internet. These are individuals the government says were directly involved in logistics, communication, and coordination. Some initially denied knowing anything about a bounty. Later, under pressure and with evidence presented, their stories changed. That flip is exactly where the defense plans to attack. Durk's lawyers argue that these witnesses aren't truth-tellers. They're survivors. People facing serious time who will say whatever the government wants to hear to save themselves. They point out inconsistencies, shifting timelines, and contradictions in sworn testimony. One witness allegedly denied any knowledge of a bounty before later confirming it. Another couldn't keep dates straight. To the defense, that's not proof, it's doubt. Prosecutors see it differently. They argue that inconsistencies are natural when people are scared, especially in cases involving violence and retaliation. They claim the core story never changed. The bounty existed, the hit was attempted, and compensation followed. That compensation is a major battlefield. The defense argues there's nothing criminal about jewelry, features, or music video appearances. In the rap industry, those are everyday transactions. Artists collaborate, reward loyalty, and uplift their people publicly. Prosecutors counter that context matters. They say when those benefits come immediately after a violent act, and when witnesses testify they were promised to be made right, those gifts take on a different meaning. Another pressure point is intent. There is no recorded message of Lil Durk saying, "I want Quando Rondo dead." No video, no signed contract. The government's case relies on inference, connecting actions, messages, and outcomes. The defense insists that inference isn't enough to convict someone to life in prison. And then there's the issue of rap lyrics. Prosecutors still want to use select lines to show mindset and hierarchy. The defense says that's artistic expression, not autobiography. They brought in experts to explain how rappers often exaggerate, dramatize, or adopt personas. They warn that allowing lyrics into evidence risks turning creativity into criminal confession. This debate goes beyond one trial. It touches the entire industry. If lyrics can be used this way, what does that mean for every rapper who's ever spoken about violence? That question hangs heavy in the courtroom. Outside the legal battle, the human toll is impossible to ignore. King Von is gone. His career cut short at its peak. His family left with memories and unanswered questions. Lil Pab is gone. A young man who wasn't the intended target but paid the ultimate price. His mother now fighting in civil court for accountability. Two families forever changed. Quando Rondo, the alleged target, is alive but locked up on unrelated charges. His career stalled. His name forever tied to violence he didn't legally cause but can't escape. Lil Tim, once facing life, now free but carrying the weight of a moment that will follow him forever. And Lil Durk, one of the biggest names in hip-hop, sitting in a federal cell as the walls close in. Prosecutors have painted him as the head of an organization that blurred the line between music and street operations. They describe OTF not just as a label, but as a structure with roles, rewards, and enforcement. The defense calls that an exaggeration fueled by stereotypes and racial bias. The judge will instruct the jury to separate art from action, grief from guilt, loyalty from law. But that's easier said than done when emotions run high and reputations precede evidence. The trial, currently scheduled for April 21st, 2026, is expected to be long and complex. Dozens of witnesses, mountains of documents, weeks, maybe months of testimony. And at the end of it all, 12 jurors will be asked to decide if the government proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. If convicted, Lil Durk faces life in federal prison. No parole, no early release. If acquitted, he walks free. But the damage to his career and legacy may already be irreversible. This case has already changed hip-hop. Artists are watching closely. Labels are paying attention. Lawyers are studying every motion, because the outcome could reshape how the justice system treats rap culture, street narratives, and creative expression going forward. And maybe the biggest tragedy of all is that none of this brings anyone back. No verdict will return King Von. No sentence will undo Lil Pab's death. No court ruling will erase the pain, the fear, or the bloodshed that followed one chaotic night in Atlanta. What started as a confrontation became a chain reaction. One punch, one gunshot, one death, then another. And now, years later, an entire industry is holding its breath. Because when the jury finally speaks, it won't just decide Lil Durk's future. It will decide how far the reach of this story really goes. This case isn't finished, and neither is the conversation. What happens next will shape hip-hop, the streets, and the industry for years to come. The trial is coming, the evidence is being fought over, and the truth is still unfolding in real time. And as more documents surface and more testimonies come out, the story's only getting deeper. If you want to stay locked in on updates like this, real breakdowns, no hype, no fake narratives, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Because when this case moves forward, things are going to change fast. Drop a comment and let your voice be heard. Do you think the feds have enough to prove their case? Or is this built on informants trying to save themselves? Was this retaliation driven by grief or a narrative that went too far? Keep it respectful, but keep it real. And if you want more stories like this, where music, power, loyalty, and the justice system collide, click one of the videos on your screen right now. We've got more deep dives breaking down the moments that change hip-hop forever. Stay safe, stay aware, and we'll see you in the next one.